Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. Welcome to Friday, April 11th. We're almost to May, and hopefully here in Ohio we'll have some sun real soon. I wouldn't bet on it. Wait, we got to fix things. We got to have everything equal. How you guys doing? Welcome to Friday. Glad to have you here. Massive Iron Live is the longest running lifting podcast Q&A in the history of the universe, and that's my claim. And it's probably accurate, but who cares? Who's keeping score, right? We're not here to be the longest. We're just here to be the longest or best. I don't know, whatever. How you guys doing this week? You have a good week at training? I am excited. Every Friday I get excited to attack Massive Iron Live. And just a reminder, I'm here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So I got a big announcement, and I want to get into that. Before I do so, don't go anywhere because we got the big announcement. Before I do so, just a reminder that if your questions don't go through, try, hold on, try re. Sorry, we got notifications going crazy on Discord, making all kinds of noise. Apparently, they're not watching Massive Iron Live. If your questions don't go through, try rewording them or shortening them. It's not me throttling you or restricting you. So, one thing I want to say, I do offer coaching. Coaching is what I do for a living. If you're a little bit frustrated with your results and you want some hands-on guidance, I'm with my clients every single day. I was voted the coach of the year 2 years ago, beating out 400,000 online trainers and coaches. Last year, I was in the top 4 or 5. And not something that I try to do. It's just kind of a reflection of how I try to approach coaching, my dedication to communication. I'm there with you every single day. So please check out the coaching tab above. I would love to work with you. If you are not ready for coaching, or you're not sure about coaching, please go over here and search custom. You can go to the search bar, search custom, and I do custom workouts for only $39. I usually do those on Saturday mornings. So tomorrow is tax day. I have to do my taxes, so I probably won't be doing much other than crying tomorrow on tax day. But yeah, if you're interested in a custom workout, I also have my book, Massive Omnibus, and my older book, Massive Iron, there. Along with apparel. Check out the workouts tab. I'm just a small business, a small content producer. So if you need help in any way, I appreciate your support with everything. So let's dive into things and see what we got. All right, let me just get squared away here. All right, let's get rolling. Joe B, how's it going, Big Joe B? Glad to have you here. Joe's a client of mine. So is Shelly. Oops, I think I got ahead of myself. Supposed to start from the top, and I thought I was at the top. Paul from Team Massive, thanks for tuning in. Martin, a client of mine. Happy Friday, Massive family. Slaving away at work, so we'll have to get at work. So this will get me through the last couple hours. Well, don't work too hard. I know you're in a funk with work, but I hope it gets a little bit better. Please, can you talk about the cues for keeping knees over toes during the squat descent and ensuring knees aren't kept inside? The cue is open. I mean, I hate to sound really simplistic, but the cue is to open your legs. It really is. The most common squat mistake is that when we squat down, your knees aren't over your toes. You're pushing your legs in. It's a form of you're being tentative, right? So when you squat, whatever the angle of your feet are, and you can go over to Massive Iron YouTube, my YouTube channel, which you are on right now, believe it or not. You can go over there and search "pick up the quarter," and that will help you get set up. But whatever the angle is of your feet, and you want it natural, when you squat, your knee has to be. Let me get rid of this. When you squat, your knee has to be over your foot, basically, your kneecap over your foot. When they're inside, you're just not opening your knees enough. And The only cue really is to open your knees. I hate to dumb it down, but a lot of the old school trainers and lifters would say more vulgar things like show me your bleep or open your taint or whatever. You just have to get in the habit of opening your legs. It's as simple as that. The angle of your foot, your knee has to be, your thigh has to be at the same angle. If it's not, if your knee is inside of that, you're going to put pressure on your knees. You're going to pressure on your hips. You're not going to be able to hit depth. You're probably not going to be able to hit depth. And in addition, it's when you look at your bar path from the side, generally it's going to move forward. There's really no magic. I had a long rant on this a couple of months ago, and the cue for opening your knees is opening your knees. It's really as simple as that. There's no complicated mechanism. You just need to squat with your knees open. I have, it's the most common mistake when we squat, our knees are inside. If you're sitting in a chair and you push your legs together, it's hard to squeeze your glutes. You're losing a lot of glute activation. When you push your legs open sitting in a chair, you will feel the glutes get involved with the squat. So a lot of times we're just getting loose. What happens, people just get tentative when they squat. When they descend, they kind of push their legs kind of together, whether they're thinking about it or not. It's just a form of hesitation or self-preservation. They need to learn to relax and, do the opposite thing. Let me see if I can find a video here of me squatting. Hold on. It shouldn't be too difficult, but Facebook has changed a few things, and it's like finding photos, separating photos and videos has become a lot more difficult. I used to be able to just search photos and get photos and search videos and get videos. All right, so I found a video, and I'm just going to hold on. I got to figure out how to get the linky poo here. Just give me 1 second. Da, 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 da. Why won't it not? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull this video up, and hopefully this will help a little bit. Let me just share the screen here. Present, share screen, Facebook. Okay, so you can see the angle of my feet. Point out, okay? And watch the angle of my thigh or my knee. You want to see your kneecap over your foot, not inside of your foot. Watch. See how my kneecap is over my foot and my legs are opening up? The cue is to open your legs. I'm not being facetious. I'm not trying to be, dismissive. The cue is literally open your damn legs. It really is. That's as simple as it gets. Your knees can buckle in after a squat, but it's really open your knees. And there's always going to be a little bit of wobble as you descend, especially if there's a heavy weight. But that's really the cue. I mean, I don't know if that's helpful, but it's not complicated. It's just something you need to be aware of. All right, where are we? Rico, how's it going, Rico? Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you here. Hey, can you build muscle? Yeah, absolutely. You pay me, and the muscle's already built, so we're good to go. Yeah, I'd love to offer that service, but I haven't figured it out yet. So, good morning, Ernie, client of mine. Hey, before we move forward, I want to show you guys this thing. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Pecula. That's just the brand, so don't get all excited. I'm just whipping out my Pecula. All right, so just humor. You'll be okay. It's bad humor. But for those of you guys and girls and ladies and gentlemen and whatever you are, they thems, you can use use this to measure your arms or your legs, right? So what you do is you pull it out and it doesn't automatically retract. And you put this thing on, right? You put it on your old thingarooski that you want to measure, and you press this button, and it snugs up. And then you can measure perfectly where you are at. So if you've not seen this thing, you can get this on Amazon for about $9, literally. And it is a great tool to have. I just have it sitting here on my desk. I've been here forever, so I want to mention that. Big Jimmy, howdy, y'all. Started my drunk Russian program yesterday. Felt super fast, 45 minutes. I'm digging 2 sets of squats. So, yeah, I mean, you can always build into the drunk Russian if you want, adding more volume. But because of the frequency, we want to. The drunk Russian, you're basically doing 2 sets of every exercise per day, full body 5 days a week or 4 days a week. You can have Wednesday off if you want. And you want to kind of get used to the demands of training every day. You're not doing the same exercise every day. You could do bench one day and pec deck the next and dumbbell bench the next. And, I kind of alternate between more intense exercises and less intense. So I'm not constantly just battering my joints with heavy compounds. But once you get used to the volume of doing 2 sets per exercise, then if you find on any exercise you want to add in, another, set, you certainly can. Could you run the drunk Russian with a landmine squat? So the original drunk Russian, you're basically squatting 4 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, and then a Wednesday, I would kind of deadlift, and then Thursday, Friday, I would squat. That was the original drunk Russian. I want you guys to know that you don't have to squat 4 days a week. You can just do any quad exercise each day. So you don't have to squat 4 days a week. Would I do a landmine squat 4 days a week? Probably not. I mean, I'm not trying to sound discouraging. I don't think the landmine squat is the best as far as quad stimulation. I mean, a goblet squat or a landmine squat is perfectly fine until you get to the point where it's hard to get that weight into position. And most adult men really need at least 135 pounds to start getting any reasonable stimulation on the quads, decent stimulation for, on a squat, and for me, it was, a goblet squat. I've done the landmine squats. I think you need a lot more weight than generally you can get into position. I'm not a huge fan of it, really, to be honest with you. Barbell Beauty from Team Massive, thanks for tuning in. Rico, the age you're now, when you look back, does it feel like time? I mean, the first half of your life, you're just building and getting a house and trying to get somebody to date you because you're ugly and, trying to figure yourself out and trying to figure out finances and, trying to get a car that's not a bomb, right? You're just kind of figuring out life. And then you kind of settle in and you got whatever you got going on, that degree of stability. You got a job and you got a place to live and you got a car that doesn't suck. And maybe you got a couple, 2-3 kids and a dog named Roy or whatever you got. And then those years, boom, you start at 30, you wake up at 50 and you're like, holy cow. So, I think just from age 46 to 57, it's gone really, really quick. And the only thing you can do is use that as perspective to not waste time. Big Joe B, we did that already. And Shelly, sorry, we went through that twice. Michael, client of mine. Steve, gaining strength very quickly, worried about my joints. Anything wrong with actively? You don't want to actively limit your weight progression. You're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. And I mean that respectfully. Joints, I've never had major joint issues in nearly 40 years of training now. I've never had joint issues. That doesn't say you won't. What we have to do as we progress is just pay attention. If you start to pick up pains and strains and stuff like that, we might have to pull back the volume. You train very, very hard, very, very frequently. And there is kind of a season for that. When you're building muscle, it's okay to have a season like that. But at some point, you just need to realize you can't run that hot that long. The closer you get to the sun, the more you're going to have to maybe pull back a little bit. Like a good example is when you get to 17-inch arms, and you're fairly lean, and 26-inch legs and you're fairly lean. Adding the last half inch, can it happen? Of course it can happen. Maybe it'll take 5 years, but how crazy do you want to push? There's always going to be a breaking point with training where you're going to have to pull back a little bit, or you're going to have to make adjustments. That's going to happen pretty much for anybody that flies close to the sun or maximizes potential. So don't worry about it. Don't try to solve things. Don't try to solve problems that don't exist yet, because I never had really had joint issues. I think most of my struggle was in the late beginner stage when I was getting really good at squats, and I was just starting to feel beat up from all the heavy, and my lower back was taking a beating because it had to catch up, to what I was doing on squats. But you're absolutely fine. Don't worry about weight. That's my best advice. The thing I want you to worry about is training hard and listening to your body. And if you need to take breaks or deload or rest days, you should. You can't feel guilty about them. Jeff, a client of mine, thanks for tuning in. And happy Friday, everyone. Cheers from Berlin. That's the beautiful thing about Team Massive. We have people from all over the world. It's one of the things I appreciate. And there are no country, there are no politics, there are no religion on Team Massive. It's just all a community of lifters. That's not to say we don't embrace everybody for where they're at. We certainly do. But lifting is the point of Team Massive, and it is our escape from all the chaos of the world. So, Big Josh Megaroids. Hey, big, hairy, ugly dude, what's your opinion on specialization phases for bringing up certain muscle groups? Frank Zame seemed to be a big proponent. I'm not against it, especially when you get to that intermediate stage, but I've mentioned this before, that we sometimes have the expectation that a specialization phase is going to take you from here to here, right? That it's going to have a big, big impact. Like it's going to increase, progress by somehow 50% over normal or 30% over normal, the normal rate. And the reality is it's usually very small. That doesn't mean it can't have a big impact, over time. If you had really, small delts in a relative sense, doing a specialization phase of 3, 4, 5 months, it'll add a little bit, but probably won't be very noticeable. You probably need to spend the entire year doing more of a specialization slant on that body part to see more noticeable results. And I hope that doesn't sound like a negative, and I'm generalizing a little bit, but when you get to the point where you realize a weakness, let's say your quads are under or your triceps are under, we really need to, we need to understand that a short-term specialization is probably not going to add a lot. It'll add a little. It'll have a little bit of benefit. But the reality is we probably need to dig in. Now, when you do a specialization phase, it's not crazy unbalanced, right? Let's say you were doing 12 hard sets a week for chest, back, shoulders, and quads, and you wanted to move to a specialization of shoulders. Maybe you want to move it from 12 to 16 or 12 to 18 sets. Let's say you want to move it to 18 sets and increase things by, 50%. You could take 2 sets away from chest, back, and quads. You're still doing 10 hard sets for them a week. So a specialization phase doesn't need to be unbalanced. It needs to shift some of the balance, if that makes sense. Big Michael, let's say I do 6 to 9 reps on an exercise. The form is good, but I feel 12 to 15 would save my elbows and knees in the long run. Yeah, we don't want to worry about weight. This is what we call evolving training based on needs. We're going to focus on hard training, and we're going to progress in any lane we're in. I think, though, you have to be careful about starting to fear ghosts, things that aren't in the room. Like you're trying to save your elbows and knees when there's a good chance you're not going to have any elbow or knee issues. I don't have any elbow or knee issues. Most of the issues I do see issues from lifters, experienced lifters, but we have to be smart about things, in the long run. But if you think that just changing the rep range is going to be a magic bullet, I think we're kind of getting off the tracks a little bit. We're trying to solve problems that don't exist. We just need to you need to get to that stage where you're really satisfied with your mass. And really the danger zone comes in around that stage where is the last 2% worth it? Okay. That's where you're going to grind and grind and grind and grind for a long period of time for the last 2, 3, 4, 5%. I tell people a lot that it took me like 10 years to add 20 pounds to my bench press. At some point, you just can't hammer out 25 pounds on your bench press every year. I got my bench to like 380. If I think I'm going to add 25 pounds every year for 10 years, I would be benching 600 pounds in 10 years, right? No one's doing that. Very few people. Certainly, if you're not doing megaroids, you're not even then you have, like back when I was in powerlifting, I was competing with some of the strongest men in the world, the Lillibridges and, Pete Rubish and all those kinds of guys. And, they were still 430 to 450, 460 on the bench. They were only like, I don't mean this in a negative way. They're only like 50 to 70 pounds more than me. And, with a little bit more advanced supplement protocol, if you know what I mean. But like you get to that high level, even a 315 pound bench, if you think you're going to get to a 500 pound bench and you're just going to add 25 pounds a year and it's just going to be like that, it's not going to be like that. Maybe for the rare outlier, the one person you follow on YouTube, but even 5 pounds a year the next 10 years is unrealistic for most people. It's unlikely the higher up you get, a lot of the people that get to 315, not many of them are getting to 365. That's the reality. And the guys that get to 365, even a smaller pool, are getting to 405. I hit 405 once in the gym at age 49. I remember it. And I don't have a video of it. It was a random workout. I don't like to talk about lifts. I don't have, on video, but I will tell you, it took me forever to get there. Forever. It just takes forever. So the issue is not really getting too close to your natural potential. It's when you're close and you need to spend 10 to 15 years of grinding. That's, I think, where we get into issues. And that's when we need to decide, is it worth it? Do we drop the weight and do volume? Do we do periodization? That's kind of the stage. And I hope that makes some sense. Big Justin, good morning. Big, hairy, ugly dude and Team Massive. Thanks for tuning in. Currently doing 6 to 8 reps on the old bench press, the old chesticle press. Want to do a little higher rep range, reduce weight or wait until, if you try to wait until you get there with your current weight, it's going to be a long grind for you. Let me explain. So let's say you are doing 180. I don't know I'm just tossing this out there as an example. I'm not saying your bench is there. 185 for 6 reps. Let's say somebody is doing 185 for 6 reps. Okay. Every rep you add on that heavy set adds 6 to 7 pounds to your 1 rep max. Let's get out the old 1 rep max calculator and actually show you guys, okay? Actually show you guys. Oh, I got potential spam. I'll get the old 1 rep max calculator. Sometimes I just want to answer these phone calls live and just see who it is. Let's answer it live, shall we? Hello? They'll probably just hang up. Hello? Are you potential spam?
Hello?
Hello?
Good morning, Mr. Shaw. My name is Rachel, and I'm calling from Consumer Services. So I'm reaching out to you today.
Okay. Let's get on to the 1 rep max calculator. I was hoping it was a real human. We could tell them, like when they say, this call will be recorded. I'm like, hey, you're on Massive Iron Live on YouTube. You're recorded too. All right. So let's say you got a lifter that's 185 by 6. Okay. So 185 by 6. Let me remove the note here so we can see things a little bit better. 185 by 6, I hope you can see that at top, is a max of about 215, okay? Let's say you want to work within the 10 to 12 rep range. So you want to push this until you get to 10 reps and then start working within the 10 to 12 rep range. So at minimum, when you add a rep to your top set, it's going to add, let's get rid of these ads, at least 5, upwards of 7 pounds to your 1 rep max. So let's say you move 185 to 7. You're up from 214.9 to 222. Okay. Wow. We just got a car ad from Mazda that bonked us. You went from 214.9 to 222. That is a 7.1 pound increase to your 1 rep max. Okay, so let's move it up to 10. We want to go up to 10, start working in that rep range. So you start at 214. Now you're at 246. 32 pounds to your 1 rep max. That's going to be about, if you were superhuman, you might be lucky to get that done in a half a year, a really good half a year. Would I wait? No. I would just drop it. It'll take longer than, by the time you get there, you'll lose interest. So I would just do it now. When I want to work in a different rep range, I just go work in a different rep range. All right, guys, we are about 30 minutes in. I just want to let you guys know, post up your questions. There are no dumb questions, stupid questions. Don't feel like if a question's been answered before that, you can't ask it. That is why I am here. Did I get into the big announcement? I forgot the whole big announcement. Are you guys still here? You want to hear the big announcement? You want to hear the big announcement? Hold on. Let me pull up the big announcement, and then I'll share the big announcement. Where are we? There we are. Okay. Now, after like 8,000 years of them asking me, after 8 million years of them asking me, I finally had time to put together a program for Boost Camp. This is Power Muscle Blast, based on my Power Muscle Burn, Power Muscle Block, Power Muscle Bulldozer system. And I couldn't make it, I couldn't give like a body part split and an upper posterior variation. So I gave them an upper posterior over on Boost Camp. This is classic massive iron stuff. So what I did was just basically take the Power Muscle Burn or Power Muscle Bulldozer. I put it in upper posterior upper format. And it also has, for the bench press, we have the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and the 5, 10, 10, 20 built in on the bench press. And for the deadlifts, you have a 6-minute block and you have 2. So I put in some of the classic stuff that people really, really like, my clients and guys from Team Massive, the bench press protocol and the deadlift protocol. And I put it and combined it with the power muscle. And I don't know that I've officially done that before, but that is available on Boost Camp. I decided to finally get my act together. You look over on their website, coaches, and you scroll down, you see all these sexy people, Dr. Swole, Johnny Candito, Dr. Pack, Justina Ercoli or something. I don't know I don't know what's right. But you scroll down and you see, look, trainer of the year. I don't have all the brains and gains. I've never had a 2,100 pound total. I don't make honest investment in fitness documentaries, but what I do is train people. Anyway, on Boost Camp, so check that out. Nolan's asking me, can you tell us another lifting story? Give me some ideas, you guys. Post some in the comments, and if you have something, maybe it'll jog something up. Happy Friday, Stephen T. Massive. Thanks for tuning in. Big Justin Jones with an important question. Can elbow tendonitis get so bad that I can't lift? Absolutely. Around 1999, I was doing 3 sets of 12 with dumbbell rows. And it was about at the limit of my grip, but then again, there weren't really any dumbbells in the gym above 120. But I developed elbow tendonitis so bad, dog fur and all kinds of things. I developed elbow tendonitis so bad that the pain was unbelievable. It felt like it was just, that my arm was being ripped apart at the elbow. You absolutely can. And I am a huge proponent of VersaGrip Pros. It was a fortuitous day in history that I decided to get VersaGrip Pros. I don't know why. I bought them. I don't remember why. This was back in the Muscle and Brawn Forum days. I just happened to buy, losing my voice going through puberty. Happened to buy VersaGrip Pros. And just for grip support. I think mostly somebody probably just mentioned them, and I was lucky enough to have a few extra $50. I started using them, and I learned slowly over time that the grip support was allowing my elbow tendonitis to get better and better and better. And over the last 15 years, I've worked with a lot of people, and we have been introducing them. I quickly learned that elbow tendonitis is primarily an overuse injury from all the gripping you're doing on backs and deadlifts and back work and deadlifts, etc. So you really want to use your VersaGrip Pros. You don't want to be in the position, I'm going to train my grip while I'm training my back. No, we don't want to do that. You want to train your grip, do other things, but don't risk elbow tendonitis. So, can you please tell us another lifting story? Should we do a Paul Carter story? Once upon a time, man, I got so many Paul Carter stories. I know he is notorious for being a little bit, grumpy, Mr. Grumpy Pants, Mr. Block Everybody on social media. And look, man, he can do whatever he wants to do. The only reason I don't particularly care for the individual is because he threatened me. I'll roll back time and tell you a few things and then share the time when Paul Carter ate my cake. Okay, at the Arnold. So basically, Paul Carter did threaten me. His buddy Chris, whatever his name is, I forget the guy he does the podcast with. I forgot. Anyway, long story short, he made a post on something hypertrophy related. And I know when I'm going to go in on somebody like Chris or Paul or Dr. Mike or Brad Schoenfeld, I better come, well structured and, well spoken. I'm not just going to make some dumb rando comment. So Chris put up something on Instagram, and I made this long, well thought out, edited, structured rebuttal to what I thought he was saying because I thought it was off target. I thought it was bullshit when it came to hypertrophy, but I didn't just go on there and go, "That's bullshit, you dumb dumb." Right? I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be respectful. So I put out a long, respectful rebuttal, and apparently in 2025, having an intelligent discussion doesn't matter because it's more about being right than it is about, engaging in a conversation so people can learn. If somebody disagrees with what I say on Massive Iron, then structure it. Give me reasons why you disagree. Right? Let's have a discussion so we can get in the weeds and people can watch and benefit. So it's not like I went after him. I left a long, intelligent response and he blocked me. So I went over to Twitter and I said, "Man, why did you block me?" I went on his account and then he blocked me there. So then I get a DM from Paul Carter threatening me. If I wanted to, I could destroy you and make fun of you, because and basically rambling on about, how I'm just a bro and everything I say is bro-ish, right? And like Paul has short-term memory. Paul forgets how he trained, and it was basically the way I teach on Massive Iron, but that's a whole, topic for another story. But me and Paul go way back. When I worked at Muscle and Strength, I hired him to write. We hired him to write a couple of articles. I was the editor in chief, and so I approached him. I hired him. That's just the way you say it. He wrote a couple of articles, and then I'm going to get to the cake story. I started doing powerlifting meets, and there was a UPA meet in Iowa that I used to coach at and lift at. And Pete Rubish, who's from Wisconsin, competed there, and Paul Carter was his coach at the time. And I got to interact with Paul then. I think Paul even took pictures with my daughter. And, years later, when I shared the memory, it was a good memory for all of us. Paul's like, "Oh, I remember that." And, then I had Paul on the channel and we discussed body part splits, and this was before Paul started changing his opinion every 5 seconds. And there's an interview on this channel with Paul where we pretty much agree on 90%. But apparently I became a bro in that time when he became highly educated and changing his opinion every 5.3 seconds. And I'm being facetious because the dude was a dick to me, and he does change his opinion every 5 seconds. But anyway, so back before he was a complete meltdown lunatic, in my opinion, a friend of mine made a cake, and we took it to the Arnold. It was a cake of Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was a gold statue cake of his bust, and everybody came over. We were trying to get Arnold to come over. And at the end of the Arnold, it's a cake. What do you do with cake, right? You eat cake. So Paul was there when the Arnold was winding down and the cake had done its cake thing. And there's actually a video on this channel of Paul Carter eating the Arnold cake. So that's the story. I don't know why in lifting that we have to get so crazy about things that we go to war, over fitness. Exercise has got to be fun. One thing I teach on this channel is freedom. Freedom, hypertrophy, it's not a narrow path. It's not a granular path. Anybody that any content producer that tries to restrict you or funnel you into one way or one magical exercise or one magical rep range. 4 to 8 rep ranges are magical. This split is magical. This exercise is magical. They're full of shit. That's the only way to say it. They're full of shit. We're always going to teach a narrow path because it is the true path. It doesn't matter the exercise, specific exercise, as long as you have a quality selection of exercises. Split doesn't matter. That angers some. Whenever I post a video on splits, I get whenever I talk about, muscle protein synthesis really doesn't matter, and the latest research shows that somebody gets angry because they don't like it. They don't want to have a discussion, so they get angry and they do the thumbs down thing. Like, why are we getting angry? Do we want the truth, or do we want to be a bunch of dogmatic idiots? I have no horse in this race. Do you have a horse in this race? Why are you rallying your troops around some horse, right? Why is it that important to you? Because you invested time and you'll feel like an idiot if you invested time in something that wasn't 100% needed? We all do that in life. There's no reason to be ashamed. I mean, we all follow the path the best we can. The key is really in correcting the course as you move forward and being an intelligent, logical, reasonable adult that's going to mature, that's going to learn, that's going to say, I did the best I could based on where muscle protein synthesis was 10, 12 years ago. And now we understand, due to 3 meta-analyses, that the latest meta-analysis says that training 3 times a week might even be detrimental compared to 2 times a week, but it offers no benefit. That was the latest meta-analysis. So that completely throws muscle protein synthesis out the window. The notion that you have to, after 48 hours, you have to train again because muscle protein synthesis. But if we talk about that meta-analysis, there's a small percentage, but a vocal percentage that gets upset. In my opinion, this is not a mature way to advance in life. I know there might be some harsh words, but you're on this path. You're at this step today. You want to go to step B. And then when someone says step B might involve a little bit of course correction based on what we've learned, and you get angry because you just went here to go to step A, and now we have to do a little bit of course correction to go to step B, and you get angry. In my opinion, that's not mature. In my opinion, that's juvenile. People can live their life however they want to live. But if you feel insecure or frustrated, or, hey, I just followed this lengthened partial thing for a year and it was absolute horse crap and unnecessary, Dr. Milo Wolf, or I spent $250 on turkesterone and the big hairy ugly dude told me way back in the day that it's probably not going to do jack squat or rooski for me in the long run, but I spent the money on it anyway. But I feel a little bit embarrassed, but I'm going to go on social media and say turkesterone was a game changer. And, right. I mean, we all do things like that. I tried things like that back in the day. I'd say in the 97, 98, there was something called Smilax, and I believe it was Smilax officinalis or something like that, where you put a dropper under your tongue, and it was supposed to increase your testosterone levels, and it was touted as the most amazing thing. And at GNC, they kept it behind lock and key, I tell you. They did, and that made it even more savage. I wanted the Smilax. Right, and you take the dropper under I bought it once, right? Looking back, was I a chump? Yeah, I was a chump. We all fell for it. We all fall in the pool every now and then. But, I can look back and say, I tried a few things. That's life. I made a few mistakes. That's life. We can't be embarrassed about living. All right. Michael, out of curiosity, when comparing bulldozers to straight sets, what's the math? If I do 10, 3, 3, okay, let's look at this because this is a really good question, and I get this one a lot. So we're going to bring up the old paper, the virtual paper. Okay, we're going to bring up a Google Doc. You know, that search engine, Google. All right, where are we? Let's bring this up. Whoops, I lost it there for a minute. I got to find it. Recent, I made a Google Doc and I lost it. All right, here we go. Google Docs, share screen. Okay, so let me get the font up to something. I got to use Roboto, or I have a mental breakdown. Let's say you do straight sets. You guys see this okay? Straight sets. And we're just going to start at a simple place. Let's say you do 3x8 on bench. Let's say bench, okay? Doesn't matter the lift. That's 24 reps. Let's say you're pushing the last set for max reps. So you do 8, 10. Okay, let's say you push the last set and then you go up to 10. So you got 26 reps. Okay. Now, basically, and we're dumbing things down, but there's going to be a scale of intensity. Let's say the first third of the reps are, lower-ish intensity. I mean, it's heavy weight. It's going to feel, you're going to feel stress, but we're using relative intensity. And then the middle 2/3, if I could type, every time I get on camera, I can't type. The middle 2/3 reps are going to be moderate. And the last third, whoopsie doozy, going to be intense. And let's put an exclamation point to stress intense. Okay. So now we're going to move over to rest pause. And Michael gives an example of a bulldozer protocol where we do 10-3-3-2. So that's a little bit on the low end. Generally, we want to be at 12 reps or above, maybe 11 at the lowest. So in my experience, bulldozer, you're going to have let's say you're using about the same weight. It's not going to be generally 10-3-3-3. You're not going to generally have that steep of a drop off. It'll be something more like, when you're doing 12, it'll be something more like 12, 5, 4, 3, 3. Okay, that's, usually how it goes. And we're going to bring the rep range up a little bit. So this will be 17, 21, 27 reps, about the same, give or take. So it's pretty much going to be the same. I mean, I changed things a little bit, right? But your example had 21 reps. You were a little bit on the low side, so I just changed it to, even things out. It really doesn't matter. Maybe somebody was doing 3 sets of 6 on the bench press and they had 6, 6, 8. And we're going to equate that, which would be 20 reps, to what you are doing. That would be equatable. Does that make sense? So I'm just doing something equatable. I'm not busting your example. You have the 10 plus 3, 3, 2. Equatable would probably be 6, 6, 8, or an equal number of reps, right? So on here, we basically had 26 reps, and we had, let's say 9 total that were, lower intensity, 8 moderate intensity, and because you're progressing, let's do 9, 9, and 8 just for fun. Just roughly, right? A set gets harder as you progress. The closer you get to the end, the more intense the old sets work. So on rest pause, we're going to push the first set hard, okay? And basically the first set, we'll say 4, 4, 4. In a relative sense, obviously this is a sliding scale, but we're dumbing it down. But I'm dumbing it down for the sake of example, and you guys are intelligent. You can figure out what I'm talking about here. So the first set's 12. So we're going to distribute that pretty equally. Now, you're not giving yourself a full chance to recover, and then you're diving in. So you're really Not going to have a lot of low reps. Let's just say just the first one, and then you get one that feels moderate, and the last three are pretty intense. Now we're over here, and we're going to do one lower, one moderate, and two intense. And now we're here. We're going to say there are no lowers. We're going to have one moderate from each of these two sets, and then two intense reps from each of these two sets. So what we're doing with rest pause is we're shifting the intensity a little bit up. We're doing the same number of reps, but we end up doing a higher quality of rep. So some people on the worldwide inner tubes will be very dismissive of rest pause training for whatever bias they have. But you can see if rest pause is done correctly, the reps are going to be pretty equatable, right? Does that make sense? And we're going to shift a little bit to the more intense spectrum because you're not allowing a muscle to fully recover, and you're shifting a little bit away from those easier reps to more average rep intensity. Does that make sense? So this is pretty much applicable to any exercise, any rep range. I mean, if you were doing leg press and you were doing 3 sets of 12 and you wanted to make it equatable, you could do a bulldozer protocol of 5 or 7 sets. I have something called escalating bulldozer, which I put on Instagram yesterday, where the deeper in you get to into the bulldozer protocol, the longer you rest, because we want to encourage quality reps, not just physical fatigue, overall physical fatigue or cardiovascular fatigue. So basically, you want to have, no matter what rep range you're working in, you want to have the reps basically reasonably equatable, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps some. Big Sam, would you say a bulking to cutting ratio of 4-to-1 is solid? We're looking at monthly or yearly, right? We're looking at overall yearly, how long should you be in a bulk? How long should you be in a cut? So the starting point for massive iron bulking, and if you're not, certain about that, just search this channel and you can find, just search bulking. You'll get free resources on bulking. I also have a book, like a 60-page PDF at superlivingtoday.com called Massive Bulking. Basically, the starting point is we do a 10-pound bulk and then a 10-pound cut. You're going to do a 10-pound bulk in about 4 months, give or take. Okay? About 2.2 to 2.5 pounds. 4.5 months. And then you want to go in and do a 10-pound cut. So let's say you start at 190 body weight. You're going to do a 10-pound bulk to 200, then a 10-pound cut back to 190. So you're going to continue to do these bulk and cut cycles. And you're going to end up basically around the same weight. We don't want to fixate on a specific weight, but we want to change our body composition slowly over time. This is one of the best ways to do so. I'm not going to say it's the only way to do so. This is my way, and I like doing it this way. And I think it's a wonderful way because it allows you to stay in a calorie surplus most of the year. So who doesn't want that, right? And to change your body composition. The whole maintaining, plantaining thing. You can try to eat at maintenance and try to recomp at the same weight, or you can do it my way, which is more pleasurable and effective. More time tested and proven, having a slight calorie surplus. So the question is a bulking to cutting ratio 4-to-1 solid? Yeah, it's reasonable. You can gain 10 pounds over a 4-month period of time and then knock out a bulk in about a month. We're generalizing, but that allows you to stay. This is fairly reasonable. It allows you to stay in a bulk 80% of the time. And generally, it'll be a little bit higher, like 4.2 or 4.5 to 1. It's generally around 4.2 to 1 is what I would consider the optimal rate, gaining about 2.2 to 5 pounds a month, but it's about 4.1, 4.2 to 1 is the true ratio. And it works out to be about 10 months out of the year, you're in a bulk. 2 months out of the year, you're in a cut. Ice cold. Happy Friday. Yesterday, I uploaded on Discord a video of my Run Ruck maps. Yep. I responded this morning, so I hope you saw that. Looked good, man. I mean, your front squat looked good. I could tell it was a grinder and really heavy, but nothing wrong with form. It looked absolutely wonderful. Overall, I had a good week of training. Weights feel slightly heavier because I've finished my mini cut, which in return, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. Be careful what you tell me, Tristan. You tested your front squat 1 rep max after your mini cut? Tristan, we're going to have it. We need to talk. You need to come to my office, Tristan. You did so safely. You're scaring me here, buddy. What are you doing, man? Testing your front squat after finishing at the end of a cut? You're scaring me here. You're scaring me here. All right, RRH. Happy Friday, Steve and Team Massive. Ryan H. here. Favorite hiking trails in South Carolina and North Carolina. I did a lot of hiking in that area. When I was there, I lived there for a year-ish, and I was out basically every weekend. I'm trying to remember if I had any favorites. I did a lot of hiking in that area, basically in southern North Carolina, if you will. So, I don't remember specifically, what the trail names were, but I will tell you that there were a lot of hiking in southern North Carolina. I really wish I could name the names for you. I don't really remember. It was just up in the mountains, up in upper South Carolina and lower North Carolina. I'm babbling a little bit. Grant, my calf raise is progressing almost evenly with my leg press. Don't overthink this, Grant. Every lift is on a different progression approach. Before I read the rest, I just want to stop here and say there's no reason with that first sentence why it would seem off. Maybe you started a little bit under on your calf raises, right? So like I was at 240 by 5 on calf raises, and today I'm doing, it's normal. You can't equate things, you can move a lot of weight with your calf raises. It depends on how you're doing them. Are you doing them on a leg press? I mean, that wouldn't shock me. I don't think it's anything unusual, to be honest with you. Big Lee. There is just getting it done. Then there is splitting your workouts into 3 triple dynamic progression while doing the kids' dinners, meds, and I mean, I think I'm getting you. If you need to split your workouts, sometimes down here, I'll do 2 sets of an exercise and then come back and do a work. I'll do 2 sets like every hour, different exercise or whatever. Everything is about weekly volume, and I can't stress that enough. So there's no downside in juggling and doing what you need to do. Thoughts on people saying, whenever we go people, it's like a red alert for me. Whenever I hear people, I'm not saying you guys shouldn't say that. And I'm not saying I don't appreciate the question. Quite the opposite. But when I hear people say, I'm like, we're going someplace fun. We're going someplace fun. Thoughts on people saying that a person's body becomes fragile once they ego lift when they're lifting submaximal loads on the big lifts, and people would still call them ego lifters for that. I don't, all this bullshit that goes on in the communities and people with random opinions about crap. It's like everybody having an opinion about, medical conditions. The body, I mean, what is ego lifting? Sometimes people equate heavy lifting to ego lifting, and it's not. I see more ego lifting on pull-ups and dips, people trying to do plates on plates on plates because of alpha destiny, and they're sloppy and they're unfocused and they're not controlled. That's not hypertrophy work. I'm sorry to tell you. Hypertrophy work is very, very controlled. Alex does controlled work. He's not sloppy. I see people not doing full extensions on their pull-ups and stopping short and beating the living heck out of their biceps tendons. That's ego lifting, right? Like the RDL, trying to maximize the weight and completely losing the point of what the RDL is, and that's to load your hamstrings or induce the stretch reflex on the hamstrings by driving the glutes back. That sort of stuff. When we can move weight. We can move weight in an explosive, reckless manner. And it can or can't be ego lifting. It needs to be with reasonable form and with reasonable focus. Does that make sense? When I do my dumbbell rows with, post a video of 200 or 220 or 240 for reps, people there's 10% that automatically assume I'm being sloppy or reckless or can't feel my back. It's their way of coping. As simple as that. I assure you, there is not a dumbbell rep that I do that I can't feel it. I'm completely dialed in 100%. But they think it's cheating because I'm dumbbell rowing more weight than their deadlift max. And I know that sounds like an insult, but it's not meant as such. It's just some people's way of coping. When I do a dumbbell row, every rep in my brain, I'm thinking about driving the elbows and shoulders back, and I can feel my lats just like I can feel it now. I can feel my back just like I can feel it now. I am so connected. Sure, sometimes your torso has to move, has to rotate a little bit to drive it back. If not, you're just lifting a dumbbell row that's not even as heavy as your mom's purse, 20 pounds. My torso's not moving. Arbitrarily, I've determined that my torso can't rotate at all in response to driving a weight back powerfully. All right. If you did a unilateral bench press, just one arm, and you're pressing up, your torso would naturally rotate slightly or want to rotate if you were just doing one arm dumbbell bench. If you had a weight in the other hand, then it would probably be easier, but you'd still get that natural tendency to get a little bit of torso rotation, right? It's the equal and opposite when you're doing dumbbell rows. It doesn't inherently mean you're doing something ego lifting or cheating, but that's just kind of the nature, of the business. And quite honestly, and I'm going to swear, I don't give a shit what any of these people think. There's so many toxic communities. You go into any corner of the internet and people are running their mouth like diarrhea, just sharing opinion. Everybody has a right to share an opinion, right? Free for all. Everybody has a right to do whatever they want. Let freedom ring, ding dong, right? But when you let freedom ring, you're going to get a lot of ding dongs. Just remember that, folks. When you let freedom ring, you're going to get a lot of ding dongs. You're going to get a lot of resounding, residual ding dongingness. You're going to get it. It's just going to resonate and resonate and resonate. And you need to appreciate it for what it is. You need to, there's hard training and there's not hard training, and people will call it this and people will call that ego lifting. The bottom line is you can't build a lot of muscle without getting a lot stronger than you are now. And if that's called ego lifting, then I'm ego lifting. Big Lee. I just did 6 reps each leg on 110 kilo barbell Bulgarian. I know there are no magic exercises, but these mates should be done by everyone. Yeah, it's a good exercise. I would disagree with you there. I've never done them. My quads are big. Right? Touche. I got you. But no, I get you. I mean, I'm on your side. I mean, it's a good lift, and it's a quality lift, and it's a lift not a lot of people will work as hard as you do. So I get what you mean. Big Adonis currently starting a 4 to 6 week cut after a pretty long bulk, about 20-25%. Any general advice? A good calorie target. It's hard for men to lose weight consistently or solidly at 2,400 calories or above. It's just very much a recipe for disaster. I don't know you, so I would probably give you general advice of starting between 2,100, 2,200, 2,150, 2,200. Weigh in every day, see how that's going for you. The biggest thing on a cut is generally the first couple of days, you're going to feel like a big sack of whatever. It's not going to be easy. You have to understand it'll get a little bit easier, right? And you can't just, I'm hungry, I'm going to give in and break. You can do things to mitigate the mental focus of those first two things. Do something engaging or something that you have to invest your time in where you can't eat or you're thinking about something else. Do watch the Lord of the Rings or go on a 10-mile hike or play video games. Start a video game that's going to immerse you for 2 hours. Something that's going to pull you away off the constant brain thinking about it. When diet fatigue sets in, the key really here is not to break or go over your calories. When diet fatigue sets in, you want to kind of go back to maintenance and just hold the ship steady, if it happens at all, until you feel ready to attack again. I've already gone from 96 to 95. Yeah, it's just water loss. I mean, that's not an insult. That's the first couple, 2, 3, 4 pounds, you're going to lose inflammation, water from inflammation. And then the real fun starts. But it's always a sign you're on the right track. If you've owned, that's 1 kilo. Sorry, I was reading that as pounds. So that's 2.2. That's reasonable. Just keep an eye on things. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. Always good to have you here. Big Adonis. Also, at what point of the cut would you expect strength to dip? Every exercise is going to be different on a cut. Some exercises you're not as strong as other exercises, so you might still build strength during those exercises. Some exercises, the stronger you are on exercise, the more likely you'll experience a little bit of struggle activity. Presses tend to be very, very challenging on a cut. So the reduced glycogen and energy and food intake and all that kind of stuff. Pressing can be a really big mental game on a cut. So you have to get on, you can't worry about that stuff. Once you have that strength, even if you lose a couple reps on a cut, you're going to get it right back. You will. So it's not that you're losing strength per se, right? It's just a short-term cut. You are, if you go in glycogen depleted or feeling flat or whatever, you're probably going to feel like crap. So, what are the chances between being able to bench 405 versus being able to back squat? Both are extremely rare. It's a greater chance you're going to bench 405 because very few people squat to that level. Both are highly unlikely. The honest truth is if you hit one, you're very likely to hit the other because you're on that kind of mental path and that training you know, that training trajectory, you know, as a natural, you know, it's extremely rare. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Extremely rare, and generally you need a little bit more body weight. Certainly there are guys that, you know, are not super heavy that can do that stuff, but you know, it's extremely rare. 225 for 12 reps. Not sure what we're talking about, but thank you. As a child, Scott Steiner was my favorite wrestler. I heard Buff Bagwell say Big Papa Pump could do lateral raises with a yeah. Uh, uh, I'm sure they were sloppy as all get out. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm sure they were. They're probably partials or slops or cheat reps. I've gotten bulldozer laterals up to 65. You can use a little bit more momentum, but you know, one of these big time juice guys, you know, might be able to get it up to 40, 45 kilos. That's not an insult when I say big time juice guys. It is what it is, right? Might as well say it. I've been thinking about overhead press. Back to my program, I always did it the way to move the most load where you get tight and fairly close grip. When you're doing an overhead press, you don't want your wrists to go outside of your elbows. When the bar is right here at chin level, let me remove this. When the bar is right at chin level, when you want the wrist just a little bit inside of the elbow. See how my wrists are not over my elbows or a little bit inside. That's the way you want it. Now you come down here, you know, if you come down here, you start to your elbows will start to tuck a little bit more to brace. If you do this, it's just placing external rotation on the shoulders and you're going to chew up your shoulders. I hope that makes sense. Opinions on 6 sets per muscle group per week, full body. You know, it's a starting point. Anything you do is going to be a starting point. I don't like arbitrary, right? What I mean is, like, you can try anything. I've tried everything. There are seasons for everything. You maybe want to do fewer sets and more intensity. We're talking about major muscle groups. That's the low end of volume that I would consider for anyone, because that's 6 sets for major muscle group or only 24 sets a week. And then when you add in minor, using the rule of 2/3, you're at 36 sets per week, probably in totality for the entire body. That's pretty low end. The question I have, like, would I ever do a low end program like that? No way. Unless I had time constraints, or I was in a kind of a period where I just needed to give my body a little bit of physical break. Would I personally ever do that? Not a chance in hell. If I have clients that do that stuff. Everybody has a different schedule. People with jobs and careers and firefighters and guys that have to work 12 to 14 hours and they have limited time and they have screaming kids. And yes, that's okay. We do what we can do. And you're going to see good results from it. Okay? Hard training will always give you good positive results. And this is a long game. But would I ever do it on purpose? No. These guys that are trying to do it on purpose to prove a point, right? Those are the people that scare me in this industry. They go to they go to some arbitrary extreme, black, white, far end, near end, whatever, to prove a point. Those are the people that scare the living piss out of me in this industry, and they should for you as well. Because they're trying to take some arbitrary extreme and show you that this is the magic we've been looking for all along. Bullshit. The magic is doing something reasonable for you with your time. I don't care if you do 2 hard sets per exercise, right? I don't base my number of sets off of, what I do is like, if I'm going to do 2 sets per exercise, I'm going to try to maximize the time I have. Okay. Does that make sense? I know my work capacity. So if I want to do a workout in 70 to 75 minutes, I know I can do 16 hard sets. So I'm going to do as many exercise, 6, 7, 8 exercises per day. I know I can handle it. I'm not going to die. Would I arbitrarily dial that down to 3 exercises of 2 sets per day? No, not a chance in hell. I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to do what I can recover from. I'm going to do what is reasonable for me. So, can you get gains off that? Absolutely. You can get, it's a long process. And as long as you're training hard, you're going to get quality production out of that. But we have to be very, very careful. Would I ever do that on purpose? Hell no. No, I wouldn't. Justin Jones. Sam, working in the 10 to 12 rep range, is it a good progression method to add weight once? Yeah, you can do that. That's kind of a fun way to progress. I've done that for clients before. You try to get 3 sets up. You know, that's kind of the old Doug Hepburn approach. Whatever number of sets you're doing, you try to get all the sets up. It's, you know, you might want to. It's hard to say. You know, do you want to just do 11? Would that make it quicker? Is a bigger weight jump going to push the numbers down? It'll all even out. Here's what I mean. Like, if you decide to go from 10 to 11 and just do a 1 rep jump, right? What's going to happen is when you put on that extra 5 pounds, you might drop down to, let's say 10, 8, 7. So basically, you know, if you moved it all the way to 12, it might move it down to, 10. You know, it's going to be about the same thing. And in the long run, it'll be about the same thing. So you want to use a range that you enjoy. Does that make sense? Adonis. Lifting story. This week I was hitting pendlay rows and a guy picked up a fixed barbell and began what the fuck? And began spinning it and hit my bar mid-row. Excuse my language. Was pretty mad, but the guy, there's probably, I don't know, this probably doesn't sound, this probably inappropriate. He probably got disabled from smacking people's barbells. Just humor. You know, you can follow. I don't know the guy's condition, and maybe he had something going on, and that's fair. I've trained Special Olympians, and I know there's a whole range of folks with different issues, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, but that is certainly an interesting chain of events at the gym. Is it normal to have a front squat that's 80% or more of my back squat? Yeah, pretty normal. When I was at, I would say mine was about 75% of my front squat relative to my back squat, but I never really overly attacked my back squat. It depends on the individual, but that sounds pretty reasonable. I have to vote dogmatic idiocy. Sounds like more fun. Big Gummy Bear. Is focusing bodybuilding like you can get bigger muscles, but you might get weaker on my big 3 lifts for powerlifting? No, you won't. The biggest powerlifters are almost always the strongest powerlifters in every case. You have to train the same way on your base. You have to build a base. And then if you want to have periods where you're doing lower rep stuff, you always have to have the base building. Muscle builds the potential for strength. That's scientific and not a bro science opinion. They did a pretty important study on powerlifters, and they found that the strongest powerlifters were almost always, nearly every case, the biggest powerlifters. So I found this to be the case when I used to travel and work with bodybuilders. They were strong. The power building style that I teach, building a well-rounded strength and muscle base from head to toe, that's the golden path. That's going to build you that big base for strength. Harris, good to have you here, Harris, from Team Massive. Steve, what do you think about alternate going through puberty? What do you think about alternating heavy light squats and deads every week? At my strongest, I would do squats and deads on every day. It's not easy, and I assume this is what you mean. In the same workout or every other week. So doing like heavy squats and then light deads that week, and then next week light squats and then heavy deads. Yeah, perfectly fine, perfectly solid. Light is relative, right? Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, it's probably a good tool for somebody doing both that doesn't want to invest 8,000 hours every week into squat and deadlift warm-ups. So yeah, it could be a really good tool. I have nothing against it at all. Big J, are supplements, creatine, multivitamin, omega is important in your view? For those of you guys that don't know, I worked in the supplement industry for a very long time. I was not a supplement guy. I was not a supplement expert. I did content development for the content side of supplement websites. I built workouts, I did the thing. I'm not a supplement peddler, so I want you guys to understand that. With that said, if we are really, really driven and we want to get the most out of everything we do, and we have a little bit of extra money, you should invest in some of these things. Creatine, without a shadow of a doubt, not just for the slight energy boost and maybe power boost, but also for the cognitive or nootropic benefits as well. There's little downside to taking creatine as long as it fits in your budget. Now, multivitamin, we are a culture that is stressed, that is sleep deprived, that is busy, and that struggles. We have so many food choices. We struggle sometimes to eat properly. There is little downside for multivitamin. At least you should try to do B12 and D3. Omegas, fish oil, no downside. I'm not trying to spend anybody's money, and I'm not a supplement peddler. But there's certain things, that's what we take. So there's certain things absolutely I would consider. Terry, what are your 3 favorite sources of protein? Greek yogurt, I think it's the most underrated source of protein in the lifting world. Eggs, which are as much of a miracle food as you could have, just full of nutrients. And I like beef, bison, elk, venison. I stay in that family and rotate. When I go to fish, it's steelhead trout because it's cheaper than salmon. It's more filling than whitefish, and it's pretty reasonable. So, all right, where were we? Lee, at the end of my cut, I'm planning a week of training. Then I'll restart bulking. Is this a good idea? After a cut, you pretty much want to do like what I call 5 days of resetting. You just had a building stage. Your metabolism might be up by a hair, 25, 50 calories. Who knows? Nothing crazy. But your calories might be, intake. Your metabolism might change a little bit. We're not going to overly focus on that because it's probably very trivial. But we generally do a 5-day where you think maintenance is at. Do 5 days of where you think maintenance is at and kind of weigh every day. Wait for that water spike to kind of level off, and then we start adjusting, if that makes sense. Happy Friday, Steve and chat. Thank you. Thanks for joining in. Jason. Due to work, can only train 2 to 3 times a week since New Year. Stronger and looking better. Is it the extra rest? It's probably your effort. There's no magic frequency. There's no magic programs. Um, I don't know where you were before, but it's always going to be your effort. And, sometimes you're just at a place where you're adding more strength or adding more progression or a little bit more focused. So I wouldn't overthink it, but that's the honest truth. Meaning training harder for short times. I mean, I think a lot of people have a tendency to try to train too much. And there are stages, when you are younger that you're recovering better and you can eat 8,000 calories a day. And, training more is probably okay. Your body weight's you're not going to get fat. You're eating a lot of healthy food. That's okay if it's working for you. But I think there is a tendency for us to try to train too much. I've never really trained more than 4 days a week in my entire career. I've had periods where I did 5, I think around age 23. But other than that, it's always been 4 days a week. Could I train 5 or 6? Do I want to right now? Yeah, I do. I would like to do shorter workouts and train 6 days a week. It would be fun. But, it's all about the training hard. Ian, are you going to be making more programs on Boost Camp? It's not anything we discussed. We just got up and running, so we'll just see how this goes. I'm asking about the bench and back squat standards since elite powerlifters and Olympic lifters, not a lot of elite naturals can hit that, my friend. Not a lot. That's a myth. I've been to powerlifting meets my entire adult life, the last 15 years. It's super rare to see those numbers. Even when I was lifting at powerlifting meets with the Lillibridges and Rubish and all these big guys, I was always like the second or third strongest in that C. There's really not a lot of guys benching above 300 even at these meets, and squatting above 500 even at these meets. It's not as prominent as you guys think. You guys are just seeing the guys doing it on social media. Thank you. I appreciate that. Of all the people you have interviewed over the years, who was the one that impressed you the most, not only because of his strength, but as a whole person? That's a very good question. I've got a chance to talk to a lot of people. And there have been some individuals that would say the right thing to your face and follow you on social media, and when you got out of their presence, they would unfollow you. I've run into some that have just done really bizarre things. There have been a lot of good people. Who have I interviewed that probably Bud Jeffries? It's just guys that are more guys like me. Bud Jeffries, David Clark. David Clark was a friend of mine, not a close friend. We interacted a lot later in his life. He was overweight and alcoholic, and he lost weight, and he went on to run 100-mile races. And he left this planet about 3 years ago, early 50s for no reason at all, just shock. Guys like that, like Bud Jeffries, just workman guys, not pretentious influencers, with all the bullshit. These guys don't argue about the specifics. They find the value in the process. And those are my types of guys. Those are the guys that that I respect. And during interview, it really showed. Like James Tiny Vest. If I had to put together my Avengers, it would be like James Tiny Vest. It would be like Bud Jeffries. It would be like David Clark. Guys that I worked with, or guys that I got a chance to interview that are just decent, down-to-earth people. They're not these dogmatic fucksticks you see on social media. Excuse my language, but they are. I mean, that's not my people. That's not my style. I respect the process. I respect the hard work. I can't do any barbell squats variants due to an injury. Is Bulgarian sissy squats and lunges. That's a good start. I would try to do leverage squats if you can, maybe a hack squat. I don't know what you can do, leg press, but you want to have a good selection of exercises, and those are a reasonable start. That's reasonable. Big Joe watched the movie Sisu yesterday. The old leather mitt wouldn't give up. I'm glad you watched it. If I told him if he didn't like it, he'd have to turn in his man card. What does it mean if someone is trying to take the easy path to build muscle? It means that they're trying to find a way not to train hard or not to use. They don't even often do it directly. I'm going to, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do side laterals to big build outs, or you don't have to get strong to get big, or I'm going to use volume instead of getting strong, or just it's something you can smell. I walk into a gym, I can tell who's training hard and who's getting after it, and then the guy will come up to you and go, "Hey man, what's your secrets to getting big?" And I'll be like, "A lot of big brutal training over the course of 10 years." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I got a friend who gave me this program, and I'm going to just go over there and do that." People tend to quit in the early intermediate stage when things get hard. The weight feels heavy. Mentally, it doesn't become easy. You need to be really dialed in with your nutrition. And people will be like, okay, but I'm going to main gain and do side lateral raises. And I'm going to do a little bit of volume. And I'm going to do some lengthened partials instead of doing weight. And I know a friend who got big, not training heavy, that sort of mentality. Big Ernie, 80s wrestling, and I like the old wrestling where it was wrestling. You know, I like tuning into the old. The problem with a lot of the old TV wrestling is they never give you good matches, and they try to drive you out to the shows. And for most of us, we didn't have the money or the time. We were just kids in the '80s, so I liked that stuff a lot. NWA, WWF, AWA. I pretty much ate it all up. Also, maybe it's due to of them being in the lifting game for decades, especially if they're started and they're not. Let's see. Jason, would you do seated overhead press and seated dump press? Yeah, I always do. Yep, that's what I. If you're going to do a body part split, absolutely get after it. You'll be good. You'll be good. Ian, is it normal for progress to come in waves? Absolutely. It's never going to be linear. It's always going to be random. I see some clients that'll be like, man, I was grinding for 6 weeks on the bench press and I hit nothing, and then I hit +2. Doesn't make any sense at all. The only thing we can put our faith in is hard training. That's it. Focus on hard training and nutrition, and progress always comes. Should I take creatine if I have liver issues? Consult with your physician. I have no idea. I mean, I don't mean any disrespect. I have no idea what your liver issues are, and I would be insulting you if I answered that question. Jason, thank you. Thank you. That makes sense about training too much. I'm 54, been training for about 15 years. Thank you. I appreciate it. I understand what you say about external rotation, but I feel like it isn't a bad thing. It is a bad thing. You can't press like this. It is a bad thing. I've been doing behind the neck press for a year-ish, and that's lightweight relatively, and that's not, don't say that disrespectfully, but it is a bad thing. This is not a natural way to lift. So just because you can do something doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. I'm just trying to protect you, okay? Because you are going to stress your shoulders if you do things like that. From my experience, training more was slowing progress. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you there. I would always enter workouts beat up, sore, whatever. So I can't argue with you there. Let's see. I've mainly been focused on hypertrophy, but I'd like to add more pure strength. It's the same process, my friend. It really, really is. Check out my workouts. Check out my book, Massive Collection. Everything I do is power building. It's base building for both. So I would check that out. And it's basically the same thing. I'll be switching to a commercial gym soon, and they only have dumbbells up to 100. That's at least decent. You could do a Meadows row. I would consider a Meadows row. That would be a good thing. When you can't do heavier dumbbell rows, try Meadows row if they have some sort of a T-bar station. All right, guys, last call for questions. That's fine. It's still relatively, that's like first stage of training. You're not going to convince me that doing this on overheads is good. It's not. And I mean that respectfully. It's not a long-term recipe for success. Mike, happy Friday. Thank you. I already do barbell overhead pin press. Is there any value? Yeah, I would alternate it every other week. You just have to, when you do it, you want to keep your wrists, when the bar is about at your lower ear, you want to keep your wrists over your elbows, okay? When you come lower, you're going to do this a little bit. Your wrists are going to move out a little bit. But that's perfectly fine. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. You guys have a good weekend. Please come back next Friday. I can't stress enough, I would love to work with you in coaching. Please check out the coaching tab. And if you are tuning in late, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Ben the Barman. Let's see. Whoops. I clicked on something wrong. Any studies on men over 48 with no prolonged history of lifting? Yeah, I got tons of clients that build muscle and strength over 45, 48. Just check out my Instagram a ton. Come work with me. I'll get you there. Thank you, David. Have a good weekend. And I'm going to go see why there's 7,000 beeps over on Team Massive and no one's watching the show. I am out of here.
You're not almost there. You're not almost there. You're not almost there.